Let's go make a killing.
All right.
Welcome to the Las Vegas Football Contest Show.
10 to the 5 to the 4, play one, touchdown!
The sharpest football contest show in the land.
I'll take the action. My Birds, Benjamin Franklin's team, favored by 1.5 points. I'll give you 3 more.
You're now riding shotgun with 2 former contest winners in Brady Cannon and James Salinas. And getting a former player's perspective with 9-year NFL veteran Mike Pritchard.
Let's go!
As they guide you through strategy, process, and your contest picks each and every week of the season.
I do like the idea of a parlay.
Now here's your host, Brady Cannon.
Welcome in, everybody, and welcome back. It is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, presented by Circa Sports and the Westgate Las Vegas Superbook. I am Brady Cannon, along with my partners James Salinas and Mike Pritchard. Welcome back to the show, gentlemen. Great to be with you again. We have hit week 3 in the NFL season. This is episode number 5 of the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. And let's look at some of the results from week 2 in the NFL. SuperContest, the consensus 5, the top 5 most popular picks in week 2, went 1-3-1. Through 2 weeks, they are 3-6-1. Circa Sports Million, the consensus 5, went 0-5. And through 2 weeks, they are now 1-9. The 5 most popular picks, 1-9 through the first 2 weeks of the NFL season. And that has benefited us here on the show. We're batting about 500 with our picks in both the SuperContest and the Circa Sports Million. And that puts us in the top 25% of each contest because of how poorly the consensus has done. Now, Circa Survivor, whoa boy, a record pace here. Nearly 73% of the field is out after 2 weeks. 10,389 entries out of 14,266 are gone. And gentlemen, unfortunately, that includes us. We will get to more of that in the second half of the show. And then also, unfortunately, we're now 1-1 with our Dom DeMarco's Pizza Money Prop Play of the Week, a loser last week. We had under 224.5 passing yards for Geno Smith. He shattered that, went about 100 yards more than that, as that game with the New England Patriots went over the total and into overtime as well. The Seahawks coming out victorious in the end. They moved to 2-0 on the season. All right, gentlemen, we move on to week 3. And James, I will start with you as we always do. What are some games that are rattling around in your head this week, my friend?
Fellas, let's get right to it. The big news is going to be the Chargers and Steelers. We know this is going to be a game of alpha versus alpha, but at this time, and I know this show's not going to be coming out right now. It's just a little after 1 o'clock Pacific time, but we were talking about this morning, and we were going back and forth about where we liked what. I think Pritch and I were definitely on the side of the Steelers, but looking at keeping an eye on those, not only the injury report, we knew that Justin Herbert, quarterback for the Chargers, did not practice on Wednesday and was heavily taped and just seen on the sidelines on Thursday's practice in a limited fashion. Was he going to be on the field? And Pritch and I were kind of talking about that too, thinking about his playing days and for a quarterback in particular, especially with a team like the Chargers, where we know that Harbaugh is coming in and setting a whole new identity, not only for the offense, but for that franchise, in a sense of what that was going to look like for a team that's heavily reliant on their quarterback, but they want to get more up front running the football, which they've done in the first 2 weeks. Thinking, all right, and when we're talking about Herbert, Rich, and he did not play during the preseason. We know he had an issue with his foot, and having limited reps, plus the fact that think about the Chargers and all the turnover on that offense. The offensive line is solid. It's got to be a top 5 offensive line in the National Football League at this point, but not having any reps during the preseason, not really being able to get out there this week, and you're changing the identity of a culture with the team, and really the receiver set is completely different. What was the impact going to look like if Herbert was either limited, or in this case now, the news came out just a little while ago, he did not practice today as of 1 o'clock Pacific time here on Friday. He's not a practice. It's a high ankle sprain, Pritch. That tells me I don't think he's going to play, especially with the big divisional game with Kansas City on deck.
And you know what, guys? I wanted to see the tale of the two Justins, too. How many Justin quarterbacks do we have, right? Justin Fields and Justin Herbert. But it doesn't look like we might get that. We could. I mean, they can do things in terms of a tape job to stabilize his ankle a little bit there, guys. But it's the beginning of the year. I don't see that happening. I mean, think about how teams go about the preseason. They don't even let these guys play because they don't want to see injury, right? Well, all these guys are getting injured 1 week, 2 weeks into the season. So go figure. You have to build up a callus of your body to play this game. You can't go in there and think that you're going to survive and not be injured. I mean, you have to go through the rigors of the game. But a lot of these teams are finding out that that's not going to work out for them. So here you go. Quarterback's banged up already for the season. I know everybody's in love with Harbaugh, and I know everybody loves the attitude change and with the Chargers, but the substance still needs to emerge. I think they're building this thing for long term, obviously, with the offensive line, and they'll get to the defensive line as well. But I think Pittsburgh's already built. I think Pittsburgh's already there. They just needed a coordinator and a quarterback. And I think they found the perfect marriage between Arthur Smith and then certainly Justin Fields now. There are so many plays out there that Justin Fields have left on the field, not with his arm, but with his legs, because he wants to prove to everybody that he can throw the football. But in a game like this, when the games are in the fourth quarter, when this young man understands that his legs can be the difference in the game and the outcome and help them win along with that defense, I have to side with Pittsburgh in this matchup against the Chargers.
And we've seen the market follow suit here. This game started out in favor of the Steelers at 2. It went down towards the Chargers to 1 or 1.5. And then, James, the news you mentioned with Herbert not participating on Friday in practice, we saw this steam to Steelers minus 2.5, even a couple threes in the market. And we'll see what happens over the weekend. Any more news on Justin Herbert's status? Who knows where this number might go? James, one game that we kind of had some differences of opinion on when we were having our discussion earlier this week was the Saints and the Eagles. The Saints have been maybe the best team in the NFL through the first 2 weeks, scoring 40-plus points 2 weeks in a row. Oftentimes when a team does that, they come back down to earth in the following week. The Philadelphia Eagles, I mean, if Saquon Barkley catches the ball or Sirianni decides to run the ball, they're probably a winner, and we have a whole different storyline this week. Maybe the point spread is different. The look ahead was 3 in favor of the Eagles. Now it's 2.5 or 3 in favor of the Saints. A weird game. Opinions on both sides of the fence here. Where do you stand?
As far as the Saints, I did a poor job prognosticating the preseason for the Saints of what I thought this team was going to be. I didn't think it was going to be a good team coming into this season. I did not really project out not to be a playoff team. I sure as hell, fellas, did not project them out to be as dominant as they've been the last 2 weeks. You can think about the first game they played in Carolina. Okay, we know that's really a JV team. But Dallas, that was a big game. And I was super impressed with the way they went in there and were very physical against the Dallas Cowboys rushing the football. And was kind of looking at numbers. And I'm not a big numbers guy, fellas, but looking at more so tendencies when it comes to matchups with both the offense and the defense. The Saints so far through 2 games lead the NFL with 40 outside zone runs at 4.8 yards per carry. And Derek Carr has benefited greatly from that in their pre-snap motion. He's 30 for 39, 443 yards, and 5 touchdowns through the first 2 games. Contrast that, and this is where I wanted the Saints, but we're not getting the best of it when it comes to the number, fellas, in the contest. But you look at the Eagles. They are allowing on so far through the first 2 games, especially in that Monday night debacle against the Atlanta Falcons, they faced 24 outside zone runs. They've given up 8.1 yards per carry and a league worst 5.1 yards after contact, meaning guys are not taking good angles. Guys are out of position, just getting a hand. They're not squaring up running backs. I think this is really if that continues, I think we know where it's going to be for the Saints continuing to make that run. Brady, your point, you talked about that earlier with us today, and the Saints continue to do that twice in 2 weeks in a row. For me, I would say yes. I don't like the number where it is I don't like where it is with the number correct.
Brady's skeptical. Yeah. Brady's skeptical.
I am. I mean, you know how the NFL is. What goes up must come down. And right now, the Saints are they're on a perch that's pretty high. But to James's point, this is the opponent where they might not fall off. So this one is a tough one to figure out here. The Eagles and the Saints heading into week 3. It ought to be a good game. I think the spread tells us that the odds makers feel it'll be close. There has been quite an adjustment from the look ahead to the current live line. We'll come back and discuss some more right here on the Las Vegas Football Contest Show.
When the football contest crew isn't busy dominating the field and making plays that leave opponents in the dust, they're doing something just as exciting. They're playing My Vegas Slots. It's a top-ranked, free-to-play mobile app that lets you earn valuable real-world rewards from amazing partners like MGM Grand, Bellagio, and Norwegian Cruise Line. You can score hotel stays, great meals, show tickets, and more just for playing. Download My Vegas Slots today from your favorite app store. And if you're anything like Brady, James, and Mike, we know you're going to love it. That's a winning play you won't want to miss.
Welcome back into the Las Vegas Football Contest Show presented by Circa Sports and Westgate Las Vegas Superbook. Brady Cannon, Mike Pritchard, and James Salinas along with you. And Mike, I know you had something to say about the New Orleans Saints, a former division opponent of yours, the New Orleans Saints hosting the Philadelphia Eagles in Week 3.
Yeah, more so about the Philadelphia Eagles because everybody's in love with the Eagles, right? They just went to the Super Bowl not too long ago, and a lot of people were projecting them to get back there. What's going on with the Eagles? Well, we knock teams, or we certainly rate teams based on personnel when it comes to on the field personnel. But where does that come when you're talking about coaches and coordinators? Look at the revolving door that the Eagles have had the last few years, and it's unsettling, right? So for me, I'm not drinking that Kool-Aid. Like I'm skeptical on the Eagles. I always have been anyway. Because of the way that organization is working right now. They're not on the same page. So from that standpoint, I can't back the Eagles. I like the Saints in the situation, but the number, there's a discrepancy, obviously, in both contests. So the 3, I don't like. The 2.5, I do like. But there is a game that I've been looking at, fellas, and the Raiders. There's so many outliers. There's a couple outlier teams on the National Football each and every year. One of the candidates for me was the Raiders. The other one is the Commanders and certainly the Cardinals. But from an outlier situation, the Raiders, they want to do what a lot of teams want to do in the National Football League these days. They want to run the football, play great defense, and get the game in the fourth quarter and see what happens. They did that against the Ravens, and they made the plays with their star players down the stretch. Crosby on one side, and then you got certainly Devontae Adams on the other side that made plays right there. So if you ask me, the Raiders at home in an outlier situation, I don't like the number. Here's another situation. I don't like the number when you're talking about a team that's projected to be a middle-of-the-road team and laying this many points, maybe too many points. But I do like the situation with the Raiders. And if we can get there, with the situation with the Raiders at home against the lowly Panthers, I mean, you talk about dysfunctional. That is the definition of the Panthers right now to me, on and off the field. So I think it's another opportunity for a team that has momentum at home, and that's the Raiders. Ice Cube's going to be at the house too, by the way.
Well, all right. Well, then there we go. Let's fire on the Raiders. I think I think the other, for me, it's looking at the Panthers, and we know what a dysfunctional franchise, starting at the top with the ownership. And I think there's a lot of animosity. We saw that last year with Frank Reich, the former GM. They're not even being able to complete the season because I think there was a lot of butting heads about Frank Reich did not want to draft Bryce Young, nor did he once he had him on the roster, didn't want to play him, but it wasn't Frank Reich's ball club. He didn't own the team, and so he got to do what he's told. But we saw the debacle that it was last year. However, we know there's a change in quarterback with Dalton stepping in for this game in Las Vegas. Now, if you think about last year, Dalton only had one start. The one start he had, it was in week 3 last year against Seattle. It was up in Seattle. I remember that game. I think they were getting either 8.5, 9 points, what have you. I took the wrong side. I had the Panthers in that game. But what we saw out of Dalton was they actually, the forward pass existed for that team. He went 34 for 48. So he had 48 attempts, 34 for 48, 361 yards, and 2 touchdowns. In that game against the Seahawks on the road, mind you, he faced zone on his dropbacks 81% of the time. What have we seen out of the Raiders so far this season? In the 2 games that they played, 77% of their defensive snaps have been in a zone. We know that defense, aside from that front line, and Crosby is a game wrecker, and he definitely did that last week against the Ravens. But that secondary needs to be hidden back there. And when you're trying to match up in zones, and it's going to be very vanilla on that backside because of the youth in that secondary, running a lot of zone, I think that really fits with what Dalton has done. Dalton's been around a long time. What is it, 13, 14, 15 years. There's not going to be any kind of there's not going to be any kind of coverages that the Raiders, they don't have the personnel to come up and disguise a lot of coverages for one that are going to fool Andy Dalton, who's been around and seen plenty. I think the other piece too is within that game, he really connected with Adam Thielen. Thielen is still on the team, the one holdover on that offense. He really lit it up in that game, in that loss to Seattle. He had 11 catches for 145 yards and a touchdown. So I think here, Brady, we were on this side. We were kind of leaning towards the Panthers plus that number. Now that number's kind of gotten away from us. They didn't bench Young to put Dalton out there to hand the football.
No, you're absolutely right. And you're also correct in saying that we saw the Raiders get steamed a little bit on Friday morning. This game was 5.5, in the look ahead, it was 7.5. Immediately came down when Dalton was installed as quarterback to 5.5, went down to 5, even some 4.5s in the market, and then back up to 6 on Friday morning. And, as far as playing this game in the contest, it's only week 3. But if you want to go contrarian and take the 4.5 in the SuperContest or the 5 in Circa Sports Million, you're likely to be in the minority if what the current live market is dealing at 6 stays true. I think there will be an inspired effort on the side of the Carolina Panthers here because of the change in quarterback. You talk about that game last year when Dalton stepped in Seattle, James. There's a bunch of guys on this team that are probably thrilled that they have a quarterback that they feel can possibly get them into the winners column here, where they haven't found that winners column in quite a long time. I think you will. And Adam Thielen is a perfect example of a guy that'll probably be inspired this week. I think the Panthers could possibly win this game outright, but we had some differences of opinion on this one.
Yeah.
Number in the contest is very interesting. Yeah. Go ahead, Mike. This one, we were all over on both sides of the fence on this game. It's a hard one to figure out.
So if you are the Raiders and Adam Thielen is the number one option, you're going to want to play man, right? You're going to want to change it up because Adam Thielen in zone. I get it. What about the fact that the Raiders want to play zone because they know that their pass rush can get home against the Carolina Panthers offensive line?
Well, and the Panthers offensive line has been surrendering quite a bit of pressure as well. One of the worst teams in the NFL so far this season in being able to protect the passer. So we'll see if Andy Dalton, we know he's not as mobile as Bryce Young. We know he's more experienced. Maybe he knows how to get out of the way of trouble more efficiently than Bryce Young does. James, when we come back on the other side, we want to talk about a game that is turning into the walking wounded here in Los Angeles, the Rams and the 49ers. And I've seen a report, and I told you guys this before in our discussion. I think it's 58 to 60% of the ticket sales have been for 49er fans. Whenever they play in Los Angeles, there are typically more scarlet and gold fans in the stands there at SoFi than there are blue and gold in favor of the Los Angeles Rams. So possibly an advantage there for the 49ers. We will see more to come. Stick around. It's the Las Vegas Football Contest Show.
Looking for your next ultimate golf experience? Discover Valley High Golf Club, a tropical paradise on the Las Vegas Strip, featuring lush greenery, water features, Balinese tropical plants, white sand, and black volcanic rock, creating an enchanting atmosphere. Valley High creates a memorable golf experience for a typical foursome, a group celebrating a bachelor or bachelorette party, or your next corporate outing. It's award-winning golf on the Strip, Vegas style. Book your ultimate golf experience now at valleyhighgolfclub.com.
Welcome back into the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and Mike Pritchard with you. And we were discussing the Raiders hosting the Carolina Panthers here at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. And one note here that was very interesting, and this is courtesy of our friend Ralph Michaels at Wager Talk, puts out some great stats. Road teams off of a home game, which the Carolina Panthers are, they are a road team off of a home game that are 0-2 to begin the season, which the Panthers are. They cover in that third game about 65% of the time. So something to behold there for the Carolina Panthers. And that's a pretty good sample size, about 130, 140 games set as well in favor there of the Panthers to cover this number. We will see. James, Before we went to break, I mentioned the Rams and the San Francisco 49ers, a ton of injuries, probably more so for the Rams, but they're piling up for San Francisco as well for this contest, a divisional matchup down in Los Angeles on Sunday.
Well, you talked about the ticket count when it comes to who's purchasing the tickets, and it'll be definitely heavy San Francisco presence as far as the fans are concerned in the stands in Los Angeles, but they may need to conduct some tryouts, fellas, because they are running short as far as the skill positions go. We know that Deebo Samuel is doubtful playing this game. CMC is already on the sideline on injured reserve. And now George Kittle. George Kittle has not practiced this week. He did not practice on Thursday. He did not practice today on Friday with a hamstring injury. So I think from that standpoint here for San Francisco, you know, we know it's a rivalry game. It's a divisional game. Now Shanahan's had their number. He's had McVay's number for sure. But when it comes to the personnel on the field, what is this going to look like now for Purdy? And thinking about when the San Francisco 49ers acquired McCaffrey 2 years ago, back in 2022, Brock Purdy has been under center for a total of 10 plays without all three. We're talking about Deebo, Kittle, and CMC. In those 10 plays, he's 3 of 7 for 49 yards, no touchdowns, and interception. Now, small sample size because usually at least one of those guys are out there. But we're talking about these are all pro caliber players out there that are missing. And then we want to factor into what that number looks like. I think this is really this. We're talking about it. We're not looking at Survivor parties over there. So we're not looking at, well, San Francisco, do they play in Survivor? Is this the spot to do it? Definitely would not be a spot if we were still in it, wanting to play a division game here, especially on the road, even though it might feel like a home game pitch for San Francisco in this respect. But we're getting a really solid number, and that number is going in our favor if we're talking about CLV here. In the contest, they're both 7 and 7.5, respectively, with Circa and the SuperContest, with San Francisco being that favorite. And I think for all of us, our consensus, this one I think we can all agree on, right, Mike, is we're definitely leaning on the Rams.
Yeah, we're going to agree on this one because I don't know if anybody said this before, but I think the 49ers are old. And what I mean by that is that locker room, this is it. You think about Super Bowl windows. I mean, this is it because this roster is old. And we can see it with the injuries. So the Rams are banged up. The 49ers are banged up. Brock Purdy versus Matt Stafford. I mean, come on. There's no contest right there. And if you're talking about a cast of characters with a quarterback, who's going to lift up the lesser of characters? I think Matthew Stafford has a chance, even though they are banged up on offensive line. So, well, the 49ers are banged up and old, like I mentioned. So I like the fact that the points are allowing us to get this on our card. I never really bought into a home field advantage for the Rams as they won a Super Bowl. I'm comfortable catching this many points right there for the Rams.
All right, gentlemen, I want to turn to another game that we discussed earlier in the week. And this goes into one of our plays from last week, and that's the Green Bay Packers visiting the Tennessee Titans in Nashville. We loved the Packers last week, me specifically, the fallen hero theory. When that sets up perfectly like it did last week, we saw it set up a couple of years ago for the Dallas Cowboys when Dak Prescott was injured in week 1 and Cooper Rush came in and they steamrolled the Cincinnati Bengals. It's same thing here with Jordan Love going down, Malik Willis, the rest of the team absolutely rallied and they crushed the Indianapolis Colts. Now, in the second week after that, reality sets in, and the reality is you don't have a quarterback for another couple of weeks or so in Jordan Love, and you're the Green Bay Packers, and you're fighting an uphill battle here. Tennessee, on the other hand, has been one of the best defenses in the NFL. Some problems on offense, but this could be a spot for Tennessee to take advantage of Green Bay here, laying a short number, James.
Brady, it's 2 words. It's Will Levis. We talked about it. We don't want to have biases, and we don't want to hold grudges. And I said that when we took Tennessee again last week. We took them against Chicago. We lost the game and didn't give up a defensive touchdown. But it's still Will Levis. And we said, all right, if he does the same boneheaded play like he did in game 1, well, he did it again. We were on a text thread on Saturday. I said, he's fired. I can't do it. I have a grudge until he shows me that he can manage the game and quit throwing the ball away. I'm having visions of him, and it reminds me of Carson Wentz and when he was going south and throwing the ball left-handed out of the end zone. Like, I couldn't do it. I can't get there. Sorry, Brady. This one's not up.
We will shift gears and take a look at Circa Survivor. The second half of the show continues here in just a moment. Stick around. It's the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, presented by Circa Sports and Westgate Las Vegas Superbook.
Want to gamble like the pros? At LasVegasAdvisor.com, you'll find the world's best how-to books, software, and strategy cards featuring blackjack, poker, video poker, and of course, sports betting, including the Stanford Wong Classic Sharp Sports Betting. Don't forget LVA's Member Rewards coupon book, offering discounts on dining and entertainment, including a buy one, get one for the awesome lobster buffet at the Palms, and more than $700 in gambling free play, match play, and bonus offers. Up your gambling game today at LasVegasAdvisor.com.
San Diego is home to Wolfpack Hospitality Restaurants, located in beautiful La Jolla. Stop by Cove House, Shore Rider, and Dough Mama Pizzeria on your next trip. Visit Cove House, a top 100 brunch in California, or Shore Rider, serving up margaritas, fish tacos, and a vibe that will make you feel like a regular in no time. For a slice of New York-style pizza with a California twist, it's Dough Mama Pizzeria, where the wings and pizza draw compliments from around the world. Go to wolfpackhospitality.com, and we will look forward to seeing you at Cove House, Shore Rider, and Dough Mama Pizzeria.
It is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, and you can find us online at footballcontestshow.com. Don't forget to follow us, subscribe, all that good stuff on the social media stuff. Again, online at footballcontestshow.com. We have reached the point in the program where we shift gears and no longer talk against the spread for a minute. We talk Circa Survivor. Survivor contests have taken a big hit across the country, whether it's Circa or anywhere you are playing. A lot of these big favorites have gone by the wayside. In the first 2 weeks of action, underdogs of 5.5 points or better are 9-1 against the spread, and 5 of those teams have won outright. We, gentlemen, no longer have a Survivor entry. We are 0 for 3. We started out with 3 entries. We lost 1 entry in week 1 with the Bengals. We pushed all in with the Baltimore Ravens in week 2, and we know what happened there. I can tell you, what I had mapped out, however, for week 3 was the New York Jets. We'd still be alive if it was the case with the Jets being our pick. They, of course, win on Thursday night. The other 2 games that I had mapped out, though, were the Cincinnati Bengals, a big favorite over the Commanders, and the Cleveland Browns, nearly a full touchdown favorite over the New York Giants. Mike, what do you think? If you were still involved in Survivor, would you recommend the Bengals or the Browns?
Well, hold up. I mean, we get a daybed now, or stay at Circa, right? I mean, come on, you got to talk about
the empathy,
right? yeah. So,
Don Pardo, what did you win? Yeah,
I know. Do we do a flip a coin? What do we do here in terms of who gets the daybed or who gets the?
We'll see if Derek will let us all 3 come spend a couple nights there for free.
See, yeah, that's right. That'll be a party too, by the way. The strategy, guys, the strategy that has worked since Survivor, the exception of Survivor, those home favorites, those large home favorites that people want to lean on early on in the year. It just goes to show you that the beginning of the year is so fluid because of the lack of preseason. You just don't know what these teams are about yet. Even though they're heavily favorite, that's primarily off a reputation, I think, or certainly a sample size from a year ago. And so I think people that had caution or heated caution, they're still in it. The people that relied on that strategy obviously are not in it any longer. So we're still looking at it, Brady, when you're talking about the teams that you mentioned, the Cincinnati Bengals and certainly the Browns. And okay, is it fade the Giants situation? I mean, the Giants could win this game, right? I mean, the Browns, they're not that great of a football team. Deshaun Watson stinks, in my opinion. So you're playing with fire there in that game. Because I think Dable's coaching for his job this year, to be honest with you, with Belichick looming. And then you look at the Bengals, they're going to get right with T. Higgins. But I'm here to tell you that frustration with Jamar Chase was not about those officials. That was about something else and all entirely. When you lose it like that, and nobody, not even your quarterback, can compose you, then there's something else going on. And I think T. Higgins is a representative of that as well, with the ownership giving lip service about contracts, but really not stepping up to the plate. So that's another one to me where you're playing with fire. Where you're not playing with fire, I think, is teams that surprise and might have the momentum or the resurgence. And you think about Tampa Bay at home, right? And Tampa Bay at home with the Hall of Fame quarterback, not quarterback, a wide receiver, but at quarterback, you got a resurgent Baker Mayfield, and the guy who's feeling good about himself, feeling really confident, right? And then you got
he woke up feeling dangerous again.
He did, absolutely. And then you got Bowles, who's really, okay, I'm good with this offense, and I'm okay. Now I can get creative with my defense. And so I think there's a world of hurt going on in Denver as they rebuild, and people forgot about the fact that Denver's rebuilding as everybody got excited about Bo Nix. But James, I mean, you boots on the ground out there in Denver. I mean, you can probably give us some excellent intel on what's going on with the Broncos right now.
Pritch, from your playing days when you were here back in the day, there was a lot of orange-colored rose glasses back then. It was always very optimistic. The fan base, the radio, the TV stations, all of that, very supportive. It is not that way anymore, and it hasn't been for a number of years because they've been so not even competitive. They haven't had a quarterback. They've been in the basement of not only the AFC West for the most part, but really towards the bottom part of the conference throughout since they won the Super Bowl, 8-9 years ago.
Yeah.
I think in this case here, there was a lot of optimism when Peyton came on board, when the Waltons bought the team, and now you didn't have all the dysfunction that was going on with the siblings and the succession, if you want to kind of relate it to how that was with the Bolins and everything that was happening with the kids. Really. And those distractions have gone now, and full, for as far as Peyton was concerned, full control. Well, and this was the guy that he wanted. He wanted to go get Bo Nix. Man, did he want to get Bo Nix? He got Bo Nix, and he has just put Bo Nix into the fire. First 2 games. Now, granted, very difficult situation to go up to Seattle and play against the 12th man up there to open as a rookie your first game, and then to come back home and have to face that steel curtain, today's version of the steel curtain, which is an exceptional defense. But Peyton's not helping him out. He is not helping Bo Nix out. Through those first 2 games, he has dropped back to pass 88 times, and the team as a collective have run the ball 35 times. I get it. They're not able to run the football. They haven't been able to run the football, but they really haven't committed to running the football. And all these different personnel packages that they're rushing in and out, and Peyton buried in the play sheet, getting out these long, lengthy play calls out to him. By the time they break the huddle, there's 5, 6, 7 seconds left on the play clock, and Bo Nix is having to go up and try to read and see what he's doing. I mean, it's really put Nix in this offense in a bad spot. If I don't know what I mapped out, and I don't know where it is, and it doesn't matter to me, I figured, you know what, if you're going to get whacked in Survivor, get whacked early. We did. Put us out of our misery, and that's done. So that's okay. Now we can move forward with just picking against the spread, which is more suited to how I like to approach the NFL anyhow. But I think for the Bucs standpoint, the only concern I would have, fellas, and it would be, is there's a flat spot for the Bucs coming home after a huge win on the road. You know they wanted that game last week, did the Bucs, after getting beat twice last year in Detroit, in particular in the last game in Detroit in the playoff, in the wild card, or in the second round of the playoff game last year. They really wanted that game. And is there a little bit of a flat spot, I think, here with the Bucs coming home? Although I think where it's really going to fall flat, Brady, is the weather. Now, the fact that the Broncos have had 14 3-and-outs during the first 2 weeks, that defense has had to be on the field quite a bit. And we know what the weather's going to be like down there in Florida come at this time of year. It's going to be hot. It's going to be humid. I think this might be a close game initially, maybe up to the halftime. It's going to be within a 1 score, field goal type game. But I think over the course of 4 quarters, I think this Broncos team, in particular that defense, is going to start to wilt, because they're going to have to be on the field for far too many plays, because the Broncos just cannot sustain any type of offense.
Yeah, I took the Broncos plus the 7, and it's come down to 6.5. I was a little taken back by how much love Tampa Bay has been given here in the market. All of a sudden, they're 2-0. They beat the Commanders. Okay. Now, last week was a big deal, going on the road to Detroit and winning. But I made this game 4.5, and all of a sudden they're 7-point favorites. I took the 7. We go back to that stat, 0-2 teams on the road after a home game, 65%. But you're exactly right, James. The question will be, can they sustain the energy in the second half? I'm hoping they can. Mike, you talked about, it has not been successful landing on big home favorites in Survivor this week. The best couple of picks you could have made last week in Circa Survivor, if you're planning for the holidays, saving the Texans, that type of thing, were road favorites in the Chargers and the Jets. What about a road favorite in the Detroit Lions this week, bouncing back at Arizona? What do you think about Dan Campbell's crew winning this one outright?
A couple of years ago, Dan Campbell and that crew could not win on the road. It cost them a playoff spot, really. Last year, they got it done, almost went to the Super Bowl. The inconsistency there, Brady, that kind of scares me. But you're on to something, though. I mean, if we were still a Survivor, I think I would advocate for certainly just a good, solid team on the road if that was going to present itself, right? A lot of people are going to save Detroit for Thanksgiving, perhaps, considering what Dallas is right now. And so you look at that situation. But I think the strategy needs to change, though. That heavy favorite at home, that one burned us up big time this year.
Well, we will change our strategy next season, gentlemen. Coming up with more of the Las Vegas Football Contest show. And we'll be back in just a moment.
Want to enter the biggest and best football contests in Las Vegas, but don't know where to start? Look no further than footballcontest.com to get the info you need to succeed in the biggest football contests in the world. Circa Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate SuperContest. Reserve the most trusted proxy service in the business now at footballcontest.com. Maddie and Tony have been leaders in the industry for 15 years. They submit your picks while you focus on picking winners. Experience matters. Go with the pros at footballcontest.com and start winning now.
It is the Las Vegas Football Contest show presented by our friends at Circa Sports and Westgate Las Vegas Superbook. Brady Cannon, Mike Pritchard, and James Salinas with you. In the last segment, we were talking Circa Survivor, and the perfect strategy, a genius move, would have been to play road favorites last week, namely the New York Jets and the Los Angeles Chargers. I almost said San Diego there again, guys. But what about a road favorite against the number, the Detroit Lions in Arizona? We were talking about that game as a possible Survivor pick. They are 2.5 or 3 in the live market. In both the Circa Sports Million and the SuperContest, they are a 3-point favorite on the road in Arizona. James, what do you think about this? Would you entertain either side here in this one?
I definitely would not be entertaining a Survivor side on this side, in particular on the Lions side, as far as a short favorite at 3, or some of these I'm seeing it dropping down to 2.5 at a couple of books as we're taping this segment right now. Thinking about where it is with the Lions now having to go on the road for the first time. They've had back-to-back home games, and they played that Bucs team, a very motivated Bucs team last week that was able to get in there and really put some pressure on Goff. I think there's, beyond the pressure that they put on Goff, I think there's a lot of pressure that is on Goff externally with the expectations for this Lions team now expected to be a contender in the NFC to get to the Super Bowl. On the other side, no expectations for the Cardinals coming in, but what I expect for the Cardinals is I've really liked, and I like them coming into the season based on the way that we saw them kind of close the regular season last year and the change that we saw from that offense in particular, especially when Kyler Murray got back. And he came back from his ACL about midway through the season last year, was the fact that the Cardinals are changing to a different style of play that we don't see a whole lot of anymore. It's not the spread them out and sling it around. It's, we're going to line up in 3 tight ends. We're going to sit right here at the point of attack. We've got a hell of a running back that is a ground and pound guy in the backfield that runs downhill. We're not going to try to get on the outside and get around that edge. Is we're going to line up with 3 tight end sets and play alpha football here and see if you want to stand up and get punched in the mouth and swing back for 4 quarters. We saw what that did to the Rams last week, where the Rams really had nothing left after that Sunday night football game, overtime loss in Detroit week 1. But here with this Cardinals team running the football the way that they do, these power sets that they have, and being able to open up that passing game and that play action pass for Kyler Murray, looking for McBride. And we saw Harrison now, the young rookie, being able to make the most of his chances with a couple of spectacular touchdown receptions last week. I like the home dog here. So forget about Survivor, fellas. I really like the Cardinals here as a home dog, getting the 3. Now we're seeing again that number getting shaded towards the Cardinals in that sense. Another home dog, Pritch, that I'm looking at. You should be familiar with this stadium. You played down there in Atlanta. Looking at Atlanta in the contest, getting 3.5 against the Chiefs team that has come off of back-to-back home games, really battle-tested, really intense physical games with the Ravens and the Bengals. Now you go on the road Sunday Night Football to play an energized Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, physical Atlanta Falcon football team too, James. I put on X that a once prominent position is now being exploited, and that's the linebacker position. Remember back in the day when the linebackers were the highly paid athletes and the most athletic players on the field. But those days are long gone as edge rushers and defensive backs have brought in the bag, right? Because of how important they are in the passing game. But what is the NFL doing? They're shifting to that running game, the power running game, 13 personnel, and all these tight ends and all these bigger body athletes. And because everybody's playing primarily nickel defense. And now you've got teams that are bought in to that physical nature. I blame the Chiefs because the Chiefs did that and won back-to-back Super Bowls. Remember, they got rid of Tyreek Hill. And so now we want to matriculate the football and be physical and average 21 points a game, and we can win a Super Bowl. And that has happened. So everybody wants to follow that formula. And now the Chiefs are going to get a taste of their own medicine, in my opinion. I think the Falcons surprised the Eagles with how physical they were willing to be on that matchup, along with the prolific passing game too. So I don't know if the Chiefs are ready for that. A little taste of their own medicine on the road. It's going to be a challenge, but I like the way that the Dirty Birds are made up of right now. I love Kirk Cousins in terms of his leadership, and I love the buy-in with the Falcons too. So getting 3.5 right there at home, that seems highly attractive to me, Brady, as well as what James is talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big part about the number here. In the contest, we're getting that additional hook. In both Circa Million and the Westgate Westgate SuperContest, we're getting the 3.5 with the Falcons. That's a big deal. Every half point matters, but there is a big deal, as you guys know, between 3.5 and 3. And we've seen the live market adjust to 3. And hey, let's face it, the Kansas City Chiefs are lucky to not be 0-2. It was Isaiah Likely's toe and then a late pass interference call, justified, but a 1-point victory. They sneak out of Dodge, getting past the Cincinnati Bengals last week. So, yeah, and I think everybody felt that the Falcons were a good team in the offseason. It didn't go so well in week 1. I think it got better in week 2. And I think, they are set up to definitely, I think, stay inside the 3.5 here in week 3. Another game, gentlemen, that I think is very interesting. We were on both of these teams last week. They are both 2-0. That is the Houston Texans visiting the Minnesota Vikings. Now, I didn't think I was going to be backing Sam Darnold and Minnesota. I expected them to be better than a lot of the preseason polls were indicating. But boy, a 2-0 start, knocking off the 49ers and maybe going back to the well again here in week 3. I didn't envision that for myself this season, James.
Well, we're talking about another home dog here with the Vikings, a short dog for that matter, getting 2 in these contests. And right now I'm seeing that number moving against the Texans. And I think now those injury reports are coming out and being confirmed. Pierce in the backfield, not going to play for the Texans. Joe Mixon, doubtful, did not practice all week. So now down to seeds and stems for the running back position for the Texans. Got to have Cam Akers out here having to step in. We saw what happened with him. We know what happened with him in Los Angeles. The fumbleitis, it drove McVay crazy. He had to get rid of him, kept putting the ball on the carpet. Well, once he was thrust into the game on Sunday night against the Bears, did the same thing, put it back on the ground again. So I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of Cam Akers in theory as far as rushing the football. It's all going to fall on Stroud. And Stroud's a terrific player, and he's going to have a great career. He's been terrific as a rookie coming in last year, and we've seen that carry over to this season. But this is going to be a real challenge here, fellas, because now it's going to be a one-dimensional team with the Texans coming in. It's all going to fall on the case for having to throw the football. And I think what that does for Flores, he's been running a lot of nickel and more lines this season. It will allow him to stay in those packages and area up his coverages in the backside, being able to get out those touchy keepers. I like the Vikings here treating.
Well, they do have a fantastic home field advantage, does the Minnesota Vikings, one of the tougher places to play. And that crowd, off to a 2-0 start, they will be fired up for sure. Our picks around the corner. Stick around. It's the Las Vegas Football Contest Show.
Steiner's, a Nevada-style pub, invites you to play the best keno and video poker in Las Vegas. Promos are how we roll, so make the most of your gaming dollars with ongoing promotions, daily free play, bonuses, and more. With a chance to win Knights, Raiders, Aviators tickets, and big money with all those jackpots. It's not only great gaming at Steiner's, it's the 24 awesome rotating draft beers and the best appetizers to match. Steiner's, the Nevada-style pub, with 3 locations across the Vegas Valley. Steiner's, I love this place.
Final segment here of the Las Vegas Football Contest Show presented by Circa Sports and the Westgate Las Vegas Superbook. We get to our picks for the big contests right here in fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. We will start with the Westgate SuperContest, and we will begin with those Los Angeles Rams catching 7.5 points against the 49ers. The Falcons also getting the hook, 3.5 points at home against Kansas City. The Arizona Cardinals plus 3 points at home taking on the Lions. The Vikings getting 2 points against the Houston Texans. And then finally, the Pittsburgh Steelers laying just 1.5 at home against the Los Angeles Chargers. In the Circa Sports Millions contest, we are going with the exact same 5. Now, the numbers are the same for the most part, but different with the Rams catching a flat 7. Getting 3.5 are the Falcons, Cardinals getting 3 again. The Vikings also getting the same 2 points, and the Steelers favored by the same 1.5 over the Los Angeles Chargers. Of course, we do not have a survivor pick, unfortunately, this week, gentlemen. But James, it is not too often that we land on the exact same 5 picks for both contests here, the Super Contest and the Circa Sports Million.
Well, especially if you compare it to last week. Last week, we only had one common play where it was the Kansas City Chiefs in both of those, laying 5.5. We thought we got the better number. Well, so much for that. They were very fortunate to win the game, like you were talking about earlier, Brady. Sometimes it just works out that way. And I think that's the difference, because we know the Super Contest lines come out on Wednesday in the evening or in the afternoon, depending on what part of the country you live in. And then the Circa Millions comes out on Thursday morning. So we have seen some discrepancies with numbers, and that will kind of dictate potentially how we might change our philosophy of looking at games, looking at teams, looking at sides, or looking at the number. I think in this case here, when it's all said and done, once we get to Sunday kickoff, I think we're going to have every one of these numbers are going to be in our favor. We will have the best of it when it comes to the Cardinals. We're already seeing that shaded. The Rams already down to 6.5 currently from the 7 and the 7.5 that we're seeing. The Steelers, I think that number is going to go. I don't think Justin Herbert's going to play. He's listed as questionable, did not practice today on Friday with the high ankle sprain. They have Kansas City on deck next week. And especially with that pass rush and being a statue back there with a bad wheel, especially his back foot, his right foot, his plant foot, I don't think he plays. And I think we see that number go to 3.5 potentially, maybe even higher once that news is released. But I think from this standpoint here, Brady, getting the best of the number is really what we strive for. Doesn't mean that's always going to be the case. I think fortunately for us this week, I know for me, when I looked at the card, there was a number of games that I liked. I liked more than 5 games this week. So it was a challenge for me to start to pare it down, as opposed to last week where I really only liked 3 games. I felt better when I have 6 or 7 games that I really like, as opposed to trying to scratch something out, finding just 2 or 3 and having to go to a collective process.
All right. Well, we didn't get to eat pizza last week, gentlemen, but we go back to the well this week with the Dom DeMarco's Pizza Money Prop Play of the Week. This is a little bonus here for you. Obviously not a contest play. Go visit Dom DeMarco's in downtown Summerlin here in Las Vegas. And we're going to go right here to Allegiant Stadium, where the Las Vegas Raiders are hosting the Carolina Panthers. Adam Thielen, receiving yards, we're going over 44.5 yards. Now, I know, Pritch, you had a lot of interest in this game. You kind of like the Raiders side a little bit. We're going to go again. Yeah. I think this game has a good chance to go over the total, and Adam Thielen expects to be a big part of that.
Yeah, I think so. And if you want to win, what do? You go to the wide receiver. You know, that's what we're going to do right here with Adam Thielen. I like you can rely on a relationship between him and Andy Dalton. You know, I'm cautious about them protecting Andy Dalton long enough for Adam Thielen to get open, because I think the Raiders are going to play more man-to-man in this game, just to try to lock down Thielen. But he is big play capable, certainly. And it takes a couple big plays on the outside to get those yards right there. So I do like to play I think we'll eat some pizza this weekend. But one of the trends too that's coinciding with our picks is how physical the game has become, right? And I think the size that we are on, all those teams kind of like to play a physical brand of football. So I think there's some edges up and down the card as well.
Well, we've seen that trend this year in the NFL. Passing is down a great deal, and the running game is up really a great deal across the board. Running backs getting fed. And like you talked about, Mike, the linebackers, once a glory position, not so much in recent years, but we're kind of getting back to that as well. The linebacker, of course, has to counter what is happening on the other side of the ball. That is going to do it for another edition of the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Enjoy the games, everybody. Have a great weekend and pick some winners. We'll be back next week with more.
Thanks for tuning in to the Las Vegas Football Contest Show.
Don't you just love football? God, what a fun sport.
Subscribe today on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts to receive weekly alerts as soon as the show's available. Good luck with your contest selections.
Pay that man his money.
And we'll talk to you next week.